You may have noticed that intervals is such a complex subject that we are actually going to use 2 modules or 2 weeks worth of study to be able to complete it. Likewise, there are very difficult intervals to recognize and very easy intervals to recognize. We will especially get through the majority of intervals that are easy in this first module. There are 2 ways of thinking of intervals. There is interval size and interval quality. With interval size, all you have to do is think of the letters. You don't even think of the notes or how they are on the staff. Just think of the letters. If we have 2 letters next to each other, a C and a D, it is a second. If there is a letter in between, for instance, if we go from C to E, it's a third. And the pattern continues even further. C to an F is a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh, and then finally an eighth or octave. There is really one more, and that is a C going to a C. That is a unison. So those are all the interval sizes. And notice there are 2 colors up there. There's red and there's blue. It's because that is setting up our next topic of interval quality. That unison, fourth, fifth, and octave will be treated differently than seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. But we'll wait for that a little bit. Let's do the interval sizes once again on a different note. If you take a look at this series of notes, you'll notice it's not a scale, it's just a splattering of notes. But still, we can figure out the interval size relatively easy. We do know that E flat to F, yes, that's in the major scale. E flat to F. But the most important thing to know is that there's some kind of E to some kind of F, so it will always be a second. E flat to G flat. We might know that from our minor scale. But still, and it doesn't matter for right now, E to G, some kind of E to some kind of G, that will always be a third. And E flat to A sharp. That will eventually be a very difficult interval to figure out in terms of interval quality. But all we want right now is interval size. So anytime we have some kind of E to some kind of A, that will always be a fourth. Let's make a big jump since you're hopefully already saying it. What is E flat to D flat? Remember, some kind of E to some kind of D. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So that's interval size. And let's get a regular scale on the board before we talk about interval quality. So there is the A major scale. Now let's talk about interval quality. You'll notice from the previous series of notes that I used a red color and a blue color. And I used the red color with all of the seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. And I used the blue color. Let's make a line. Here we are. I used the blue color for all of the unisons, fourths, fifths, and octaves. So those are going to be treated differently. If we have a second, third, sixth, or seventh, this is what we will call a major, minor interval. If it's in unison, fourth, fifth, or octave, they will be a perfect interval. Now, when we're dealing with a note and then its major scale, all we will have are major intervals and perfect intervals. So for example, if we have an A to a D, that's a second, third, fourth. Then since A goes up to D and D is in that major scale, it is now a perfect fourth. If we go from A to F sharp, that is a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. That will be a major sixth. So all of those notes in the major scale will be either a major and major second, third, sixth, seventh, or perfect fourth, fifth octave. We can actually go through them all: a major second, a major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and perfect octave. Let's take a look at one more scale. Here we have a D major scale. So anything from this D to any other note will be a major or a perfect interval. Let's start simply from a D to an F sharp. First, we have some kind of D to some kind of F. That is a unison, second, third. So we know it's a third. And since it's in the major scale, it will be a major third. And you can use just simply a capital M at this point in time. And let's look at that D to A. First, it's interval size, unison, second, third, fourth, fifth. This is a fifth. And since A is in the D major scale, it will be perfect. Now let's take a look at intervals as they appear on the staff. You should be able to recognize this series of notes pretty instantly. It is an F major scale. F going to F with one flat. And if you know your major scale, then you know your intervals from this F to all of those other notes. And let's start with F to D. First, we need to figure out the interval size. Unison, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. That will be a sixth. And if that's a sixth, and this D is in that F major scale, then it will be major. Let's do another one. Let's go from F to G. They are adjacent letters, F going to G. So we know it's going to be a second. And second, again, if I'm keeping my color coordination, excuse me, is red. And it's a major second. One final one, since I don't have a perfect interval up there yet. Let's do F to B flat. So unison, second, third, it's a fourth. So with that fourth, a fourth is going to be a perfect interval. So there we are. Since B flat is in that F major scale, it's going to be a perfect fourth. Let's do one more scale to make sure you have everything squared away for this week's module. Here we will go from the opposite direction. There is 4 G's and intervals in which I want you to write a note above that G. Notice they're all major and perfect. So all you have to do is find the notes of the major scale. And let's write it out real quickly. And G to the next G has 1 sharp. So if it's a G and it's a major or perfect interval, you know it's going to be one of those. So a G and a major third, where there's a unison, major second, major third, will be G to B. A G up a major sixth, unison, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. We know it's going to be a G to an E. A perfect fifth, unison, second, third, fourth, fifth is a D. So that's going to be G to a D. And finally, a major seventh. There's a unison, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. And since F sharp is in the G major scale, we know a major seventh above G will be an F sharp. So how easy or difficult this week's module assignment is going to be will depend on how well you know your major scales. So if you're struggling and having a difficult time with all of these intervals, I suggest practicing your major scales that much more. because again, those will be very important as we continue in music theory.